Good morning and happy Sabbath. I'm back from Washington State and we did the writing for the lesson today. A cloud leads the way. If you know the Bible stories, you probably know which story we're going to be talking about. And it's all about Moses and the Israelites. The Israelites, after 400 years of being slaves to the Egyptians, were finally freed. And so they left the Egyptians and they took with them everything. They took their animals, their children, their grandparents, everyone. There were many of them who went straight to the desert because Egypt is kind of like in the desert, right? And as they were walking, God presented to them in a very, very unique way, very special. He had clouds. And I'm going to put this book here like this. And in the daytime, they had a cloud. It said a pillar of clouds. And so there were this pillar that will guide them to where they needed to go. And it provided shade for them. And in the Bible says that God even talked to them through the cloud. So it was a very special cloud. It was not just one or two little clouds on the sky, but it was a pillar of clouds. And then at night, when it gets very cold in the desert, they had a pillar of fire. This pillar gave them not only warmth, but also light so they can see where they needed to go. And so they were obedient to God, and God gave them instructions on everything that they needed to do. Before I forget, I want to tell you where you can find this story. It's in the book of Exodus, chapter 13, and everything that we talked about the clouds is in verses 21 and 22. And then the rest of the story is in chapter 14, Exodus 14, verses 19 through 20 says the lesson. But when I read the Bible, it seems that it goes all the way to verse 29. So if you want to read that at home, please go ahead and read that at home. And so these clouds were following them, and all of a sudden, when the Egyptians realized that the Israelites had left, they had no maids, no workers. Now they're going to have to do everything on their own. They got so mad, and they immediately went after the Israelites to get them back. And when the Israelites saw that the Egyptians were coming in their chariots, with lots of dust coming from the horses and all that, they started to get afraid. And so Moses told them not to worry because God will take care of them. I mean, he had taken care of them already with the clouds, right? The pillar of clouds. And so what happened is that God told Moses, because they were on one side, there were mountains. On the other side, there was the big sea, the Red Sea. And so Moses told them to just stay there because they started to complain a little bit. We should have just stayed with them. Now, what are we going to do? And so the cloud became a double thing, okay, very long. It was at night, it was giving light to the Israelites, and it was keeping darkness to the Egyptians. So the Egyptians were all confused. They couldn't really advance, and the Israelites continued. And when they got to the Red Sea, God said, you must continue. Just get all your stuff and keep walking. And so they started to do that, and God said, and point to the Red Sea. And the Red Sea began to opening like a big fan was just opening the walls of water, and they walked all the way to the other side. When the Egyptians saw that, they followed the same path into the sea without knowing they were going into a trap, I suppose. So when the last Israelite came out of the waters, and so when God told Moses to point out the staff over the sea, what happened? The waters just came together, and the Egyptians started to drown. And so the people of Israel saw all this, and when this was done, they rejoiced greatly and they worshiped God with a happy heart. And so once again, the lesson is telling us that we need to be obedient to God and rejoice in the things of God. We cannot say that we love God, but we don't obey His commandments, right? We obey His commandments, we will experience that happiness that obeying God brings to our life. Unless you're a bad person, you don't enjoy doing what is right. And what God tells us is right all the time. We just need to be obedient and trust in God. And our life will be a happy life. So when you have experienced God's love and protection, sing with joy. Speak gladly to others about God. Share the gospel. And so let's do the memory verse, which is found in Psalms 119, verse 10. And it says, I seek you with all my heart. Do not let me stray from your commands. What a beautiful prayer that is. I hope that you and I can always make that kind of prayer, that we can stay in the path that leads to God. And so that's the lesson for today. I will see you next week, and have a beautiful and blessed Sabbath. Goodbye.